Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk Right today. And we're back here on a season when typically it's about appraisal. It's about trying to see what you have done in the last 1 year and trying to find out what's been great, what's been not so great. And then, well, end of the day, it translates into monetary terms. Well, there are times when it's great, then there are times when it shakes, and then it makes a lot of difference. So let's try and assess what this appraisal or the annual appraisal is all about. And yes, joining me as always is my friend, my colleague, Mayur Kalbag. And yes, this is me, Santosh Sirur. So we both take you on a journey of improving or enhancing on your soft skills in each of these sessions. And today it's all about performance appraisal. Over to you, Mayur.
Thank you so much, Santosh, and good to see you after a long time. Good to see all our viewers who are watching us. Let me start by saying that, one of the things that would get me jittery and nervous one of the things was to be told that my performance appraisal is going to happen soon. So as I look back, I remember I used to feel the butterflies in my stomach, and I used to feel like, kya hone wala hai? What's going to happen? Have I done everything right? And when I look back now after so many years, I really wonder, was that really necessary? And that brings me to this particular point about why are we doing this topic is probably to help or to share our thoughts, which could help the viewers to understand that performance appraisal is nothing to be feared, like I would fear, nothing to be shaken up by. It's a process. As I break it up, I would say that appraisal as such is a process to evaluate the worth of somebody or something.
Yeah,
We must understand that even buildings are appraised, right? You make an appraisal of stocks, for example. It's
yeah,
basically finding out about what the person, and here we are talking, of course, in the context of people. So it's about, you know, an appraiser trying to understand uh, what has happened, how it can be bettered, and if something hasn't happened, then what should be done?
absolutely.
So I just leave it at that, Santosh, that fundamentally, if a person is able to understand that appraisal is simply a process of being evaluated with a positive intention. I mean, I'm looking at it from a perspective of positivity, where the appraiser sits across, interacts with the appraisee or the person who's being appraised, and the whole intent is to see how you can go forward. For me,
Yeah,
three P's always make a difference, and then I'll give it to you, Santosh. Appraisal should be, I believe, a process which is progressive, which is positive, and which I believe personally, which has to be with a heavy dosage of passion, because the passion to improve somebody is how an appraisal should be.
yeah,
And
agree.
it's the performance. Okay, क्या हो गया है? टा 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 कैसे उसको और अच्छा करना है? Okay, but the appraiser should be genuinely keen to do that.
Agree. Yeah, you really made that point. It's all about the process, and that process. If I have to add it to what you said, that process has to be a macro level. You can't look at it what you did in that year. You've got to look at it from a career standpoint, a long-term view. Whether you're going to be with that organization or another organization, that's another story. But in your own career assessment, it has to be a long-drawn thing. Where you are, where you would love to be, and where you think you could have been is what one needs to. So let's talk about it from both an appraiser perspective and an
Sure,
appraisee
sure,
perspective.
sure.
Let's not get, or rather talk about the compensation, the percentage of bonus, the bonus spot, all these are, it's an organization to organization. And again, with the COVID kind of a situation, for all you know, there may not be a bonus spot in the first place. So let's keep that aside. Let's talk it more in the context of an, performance, right? So
So
for,
how about if we do it this way, that you share your thoughts, and I think the viewers will enjoy this. You
yeah,
share your thoughts as an appraiser in some
yes,
sense,
yeah.
and I'll
So as
probably
an
come in as an appraisee.
Okay.
So
So as an appraiser, I would say, we have set your objectives right at the onset of last year. I mean, this year, beginning of this year. And now we're trying to assess where you have you met it? Have you exceeded it? Or you're really not even up to that expectation? So these three, let's take this as a basic bucket. and its immediate requirement is you got to self-assess first, because we set your objectives, right? Now you assess where you are. You be frank to yourself. You be honest to yourself. Then I come in as an appraiser, step in and see where you are. You may, for all you know, I may have a different view. You may feel something, you have not met that expectation. I may say, no, you didn't meet it, or other way around. So that's how it begins.
So are you saying that as an appraisee, or sorry, as an appraiser, it's important to give an opportunity to the person who's being evaluated
You
to
must
speak
give an
up and share?
opportunity.
Because this session is about also helping a person understand how he can improve or she can improve as an appraiser.
Correct.
So I think one of the takeaways I'm getting is, don't straight away start off
Giving my
evaluating.
viewpoint as an appraiser, give opportunity to the colleague or the one down or the person to let him make his own or her assessment of where he has performed. The person has to be true himself. So tomorrow there's no leaving a chance. Typically mindset is like, ye bahut biased hai. He's not biased. He has people, whom he anyway wants to promote.
So for example, let's be more specific. For example, if a person hasn't performed, okay.
Yeah.
The appraiser, the boss, let's call him the boss because he's doing the appraisals. The boss looks at the person's performance. Obviously, he knows that he has not performed.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to understand is a boss who wants to make a good appraisal,
correct,
as in make the process genuine one, should not also come with preconceived assumptions about the reasons for the non-performance.
Correct.
He shouldn't judge somebody. I think one of the takeaways is, don't judge the book by the cover. I know it's cliched, but here I think what I'm learning is the boss should be able to not come with a cemented view for the reasons of non-performance. He should have, or she should have, an open mind.
Correct.
To allow, like you said, to create opportunities and openness and comfort level for the appraisee to share why the performance dipped. And I think through that, the boss probably will be able to understand if the guy is just saying it or he really means it when he's trying to explain and justify his lack of performance. But to give that opportunity is important. Absolutely. And to also come in with a very open mind.
Yes,
isn't it?
That open mind is giving that person an opportunity to speak, be open about it. And also it's very important for that boss to set a line of expectation and set a line of guidance as to what could be done to improve it in the next 6 months, right?
Wonderful.
So these two elements are very important. That's exactly
expectations. I think for the viewers, it's the keywords: expectations, a line of expectations, guidance in terms of the boss should be also clear about what is the game plan.
Yes.
And also another keyword that you brought out was the time period. I think everything happens in this world with a duration. We all live with a duration. Correct. So when you set some deadlines, milestones, कि वो boss बोलता है मुझे अभी ये चाहिए, this you have to improve on these things. आपका communication बराबर नहीं है. Not enough, no? It has to also be in terms of till when.
Correct.
Isn't it? So that I think is that's a very pertinent point. It has to be not just an open-ended thing that I want you to improve. This happens a lot. मुझे ये देखना है, आप में improvement चाहिए.
How to do he will not spell out. Then it's a problem.
So expectation, guidance, and within the time limit.
Absolutely. There's another element to it, and this is very, again, Jan, Feb, March turn out to be generally the appraisal period, right? And then people look at the Novembers and the Decembers of that year to assess a person. That again is not wrong, not right. One needs to assess it from an end-to-end year perspective, which is why in some organizations, it could happen that you have a half-yearly appraisal and then you take it from there on. So again, that's a good opportunity. Some organizations have a quarterly system. So it has to be a continuous assessment and just can't be a year-ender and then it's a showdown, because sometimes then it can be on a different wavelength between both of them and then it turns out to be a disaster.
So for a person who's watching this, and who's working in an organization, whichever that may be, and he's in the position of somebody who needs to conduct a performance appraisal. He may be a manager or she may be a manager or executive, but they have somebody who needs to be appraised, evaluated. Again, the point of learning from what comes out from you is, apart from the formal process, which may happen on an annual basis, it is important for a manager to not just wait for that yearly one, but keep it as a continuous process.
Correct.
Because you just can't blindside somebody for the whole 11 months.
Yeah.
And then suddenly pick up the report and say, ye kyun nahi ho, kyun nahi ho. Maybe if the evaluation happens on a continuous basis, it in fact will lead to a point where when the annual one happens, there won't be too many things which probably will disappoint the manager because he's already
Agreed.
taken care of it, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, what I would even suggest for the appraisees who typically say or feel that the boss has not been too fair to them, one important thing is that in the course of your year, right, you need to do your own assessment whether that guy, your boss is going to sit formally with you or not.
Yeah,
Could
yeah,
be appreciation emails received from your stakeholders. Could be some achievements that have happened in those months. Keep a record of that, right? Those emails are there. It may not be a formal email, but at least jot down those points. It's easy to remember and
absolutely,
jot them down. It helps you when you write your
absolutely.
self-assessment. These are important.
You
At
know,
the same
the
time,
yeah,
when you have
yeah.
some negatives or whatever that is, things didn't meet your expectations or something, also make it a point to mention, but also add what would you do to overcome those. that's that's
Sure, sure.
that's something very mature enough.
See, one thing I was when I was trying to polish my knowledge or understanding about appraisals and
Hmm.
preparing for this particular session,
Hmm.
one of the things that stood out as I was just looking at the subject was the process of SWOT.
Yeah,
And
correct.
and when you said that it's not only, and viewers, this is important, it's not just about you being appraised by your superior, it's also about you assessing yourself. So self appraisal is important, and I think in that process, looking at your strengths, identifying your weaknesses, looking at possible opportunities and the possible threats that could come in the way, that's the SWOT. I think that if you can conduct for yourself, you're going to make life far more easier for the boss, because he would be quite pleasantly surprised at the way you're presenting yourself because you already assessed. Of
Yeah,
course, he or she will present his or her perspective,
yeah,
but I think that interaction will be far more fruitful if you were to do your self appraisal.
correct.
And here, Santosh, just to add a little bit of a perspective as an appraisee, like I said, I'm going to play the role of an appraisee or a person who's being appraised or evaluated. Because one thing is for sure that uh, the attitude of a person who's being evaluated is very important. Like I said in the beginning, when I was told that tera performance appraisal hone wala hai, next week, why would I have to feel the jitteriness and the nervousness, the fear, and that feeling that pata nahi kya hoga, I think that itself will affect my communication. So a couple of things I want to share, and please take this as something coming from a person who has experienced it, is when you are in front of your superior, one thing you must try and be is calm, composed, collected, because that will help you in articulating your thoughts in the most effective manner, even if it means that your superior, because you can't control the way your superior talks to you.
Yeah,
Santosh will agree with me that there are so many situations where the boss has pounced, metaphorically speaking, shouted, yelled, because he's not happy. In fact, that is something which an appraiser shouldn't do. But you can't control that. What you can control is the way you react or respond.
yeah,
Like I always say, reactions are spontaneous, responses are calculated. But if you want to respond, be calm, be composed. Even if somebody's scolding you, and rightly so, don't look at the tone of that communication. This is as an appraisee. You may feel nervousness while it's happening. Still try and do deep breathing and control yourself. The reason is that even if you're not done well, maybe you failed, the composure and the confidence with which you will probably explain what has happened, accept the failure, and probably also share what you intend to do about it, the
yeah,
way you handle that situation will impress the appraiser.
absolutely. In
I
fact,
hope I'm making sense, Santosh.
in fact, another thing typically mindset is, oh, everything is anyway decided. Everything is decided. So what's this big deal all about? It's a formality hai. No, never take that into that context. Okay, that
Correct,
is
correct.
exactly what I was trying to say. It's a long-term view. It's not a short-term view. Maybe you feel it's a short-term, but remember it from your own career standpoint, because that whatever you write as your assessment, whatever your
Hmm,
appraiser writes about you in that assessment, the final comments make a big
hmm,
difference because it goes on record and it goes on into HR records. And then tomorrow, let's say you have an internal lateral transfer or a promotion or something that happens, these kind of documents, these kind of documented information can be very important for the other person who's going to read it later, or will get feedback. So you got to look at it from that. Don't have a very myopic view of these assessments. So
Right,
that's
right.
very important. The second point is it's about another. I think you touched upon it. Aggressiveness. Sometimes you guys have that. I have to use that right Hindi word, maybe khunnas, and you want to put it out, and you say, let's wait for that day and let it be on the record. That shouldn't ever be done. Never ever be done. I think it's very important that you should use that opportunity to, yes, speak out. No one is telling you don't speak out. Be frank enough,
Uh,
but
True, true, true.
control your emotions. It's all about being showing your maturity again, both from an appraiser as an appraisee. In everyone as an appraiser has come across the tears, the frustrations, the anger, and I mean all of us have come across this when we have
Uh,
discussed this. But yes, that's not the way to do, not the way to deal with it. You must give more. Again, another very important. Typically, these appraisals shouldn't happen at 5 in the evening. You should, as an appraiser, set a standard specific time and give time to it. It is something. It's a whole year-long process of whatever hard work one has put in. We're now deciding it. It can't be a 5 minute exercise. And now I can imagine with COVID situation, almost all appraisals are going to be online. So it gives you
yeah,
all the more reason maybe to finish it off, but that shouldn't be the way it should be. It
yeah.
should be really discussed in depth. Frankly, fortunately for me, in my appraisals, either ways, it's been very lengthy, very much discussed, very mature, and it has you have to show a way to the person ahead in life. I think that's the
Just to
important part.
just to add a little more value to your valuable point, Santosh, and just to re-emphasize, let not appraisal as a process becomes something that you don't want to do, but you have to do it.
Hmm.
Because I've seen that. Because there's so much work to do, abhi kya appraisal, and you sometimes people tend to pretend that it's a very important thing because they actually are not interested. So I want to take you back to the 3 P's. Appraisals must be progressive, positive, and passionate. There has to be a desire, like Santosh, you were saying that it's not about how long or how short. It's about the fact that you want to do it, and even the time. I think it's a good point. Is fix up a time where there's freshness. Give time also to the person to prepare himself or herself. Kabhi kabhi gadbadi mein, it's like a modality. It's like a formality that has to be done. If we can refrain ourselves as assessors to do that, and we really feel that it's a good, genuine process to build up somebody. I just noted this down that a performance appraisal is a systematic evaluation of performance of the past, present towards the future.
Yeah.
you know and therefore I say it's progressive. um, Having said all this, you know if a person who is working towards growth can understand the significance of performance appraisal as a great catalyst to help grow, if that gets embedded, I think the job is done.
Yeah.
Because the moment you give that seriousness, to this process, Santosh, I'm telling you, so many times I've seen even the person who's attending the process as an appraisee also goes in with a very rigid mindset. Always, like you said, वो already but ये हो गया कि नहीं होने
Decide
वाला
हो
है
चुका
कुछ.
है. Yeah.
Huh. And sometimes the khunnas happens like this, Santosh. I expect, forget about expectations of the appraiser who expects you to grow. Even appraisees go in with expectations, right? Because they think they've done a good job.
Yeah.
Mujhe out of 5, I'm going to get, or out of 10, I expect a rating of at least 8.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that the way an appraiser is perceiving you could be different.
True. Yeah.
So I go in, I can't tell the appraiser that, hey, I was expecting 8, you're giving me 6. What it
Yeah.
does is it creates a khunnas in me when I
Correct.
go out. And
Yeah.
that's wrong because it also can infect team working.
Correct.
ऐसे हो
And
गया
then
है.
there is this
Yeah.
famous or infamous bell curve, right? Eventually, again, that is the ratings you can't give everyone exceeds or whatever they may have a 1 or a A
Yeah.
or whatever. You have to do that balancing out, and that balancing out has to happen. It is the reality of the day, and one
Yeah.
needs to understand it.
See, what I meant was,
Yeah.
Santosh, what I meant was sometimes I may feel that injustice has been done,
Hmm.
and rightly so. And yet I'll have to be mature enough to deal with it in a way which doesn't infect my own attitude
Yeah.
towards work and towards team building.
Correct.
Like I may sometimes
Absolutely.
see myself gossiping about my boss because I'm really angry because he didn't give me the
True.
rating that I wanted.
True.
And
True.
somewhere unknowingly I'm polluting the
The
team
whole, yeah.
spirit.
Agree.
The whole, that's what I'm just sort of that
Correct.
ho jayega, theek hai. Like you said, it's a bell, it's that bell curve that you're talking about. Sometimes it happens.
Correct.
Deal with it. Deal with it. Maybe it's tough,
Yeah.
but it's better than not, going and sort of
Correct.
talking shit about people and
Absolutely.
feeling that vengeance towards somebody.
True. In fact, even for the appraisal, right, Mayur, I think the appraiser also needs to be very sensitive and needs to be really planned. I mean, I've come across crazy cases where, I mean, I understand the appraiser's sense of, urgency. He may have about 40, 50, 60 colleagues to write an
True.
appraisal, but boss, don't get into a copy paste mode. I mean, I've come across these
Yes.
things. Don't get into a copy paste mode.
Good point.
The realities of life are you have to do an appraisal. You better be serious about it. Put in your efforts on a weekend and do it. Other mistakes that typically appraisers do is, I mean, though they may say that, don't talk about your rating to someone, they start an appraisal with saying, you don't worry, you got, let's say example, a B or a 2, but don't worry, the other guy who is your competition has not got, so you are actually igniting the minds out there. So it has to
Absolutely.
be a
Absolutely.
genuine one-to-one. You can't disclose. Of course, see, many a times, and that's a message even for the appraisee, the appraiser is more concerned or more worried, if I have to put it so bluntly, about the appraisee's response. So he sets the tone in such a way that there is no backlash, right? So that can happen, especially when you have a very aggressive appraisee who is really well, up to mark, and still you got to give him or her a lesser rating. Those,
Yeah.
so HR is there to step in, but you know how it works out, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
so end to end, if I have to say in short, this is a season where each party, the appraiser and the appraisee, need to assess in the right way, be transparent, and be honest
Yeah.
about it.
And I think as I conclude from my side, Santosh, for all the viewers, if you are assessing somebody, uh, apart from a lot of things that have been shared, and I hope you've extracted, one thing is remember that all of you are part of the same team. Don't forget that whatever happens, it has to be in the interest of that person's growth, because that person's growth is going to eventually influence the organization's growth, isn't it?
Correct.
So कभी कभी ऐसे हो जाता है कि I don't like my assessee standing up to me and saying, no, sir, ye nahi tha and all. Maybe that person is unable to communicate properly, who the assessee. But as an assessor, if the ego comes in the way, and I say to myself, how dare he talks to me? I've given him a rating. I know better. I know him better.
Yeah.
That I think has to sort of be handled, because we are professionals and we need to, act it out, or be that way. So these are a few things. I hope the viewers enjoyed this session, and you participated by listening to us. I do hope
Absolutely.
that you will share some things through the email, and Santosh will take on from here.
Absolutely. Always appreciate your emails, which is on talkrighttoday@gmail.com. And well, our season 2, as we call it, continues with quite a few more sessions and, on soft skills. And I'm sure it helps you in enhancing your soft skills. The appraisal piece, which we discussed today, why from a soft skill standpoint, is something which is there's a lot of communication. There is tremendous communication in this.
Sure.
And I think that's where soft skills matters, right? Even
Absolutely.
be it not so good appraisal, still take it in a mature way, still take it, as I said, long-term view, and look at it as a career rather than seeing that 1 year of whatever happens. If it turns out to be something that is not in your favor, right? Look at it in
I
that
have,
point.
Santosh, and viewers, I have seen brilliant, technically brilliant people in organizations, some of them where I worked, who came out frustrated after the performance appraisal happened.
Hmm.
Not because of what was said, because how it was said. They
Correct.
felt humiliated,
Yeah.
frustrated. Now, I could very well say to that person that, hey, chill, man, it's okay. You can't control. But I think it goes both ways, right? One is for the person who's been shouted upon to be mature enough to know that you can't make hasty decisions and leave an organization or get demotivated and demoralized tremendously just because somebody shouted. And
Yeah.
for the appraiser, you need to understand that these are all, like you said, the softer aspects of a person is probably as important as the technical brilliance of that person.
Absolutely.
So that's a well made point by you as well, Santosh.
Correct. On that note, from me, Santosh and Mayur, well, we catch you on another session of Talk Right Today in the coming days. Bye bye.
Bye bye, and do write to us.